premier source for South Louisiana sports. Welcome into the American Sports Podcast. Now here's your host, BD.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am your host, BD, and this is the American Sports Podcast, and this is episode 10. I began this podcast with a vision in mind 10 weeks ago. I, of course, began planning the podcast way before that, and believe me when I say that it is still very much a work in progress, but I feel like my editing and the content is getting better each week. That being said, episode 10 brings some of the best content yet. This week I have a very interesting interview with former Saints defensive back Delvin Breaux. We talk about life in football, including his major neck injury in high school, as well as his time at LSU, and then his time as a Saint. Most entertaining and most importantly, his exit from the Saints is the main topic of conversation that I want you to pay attention to in this interview. It includes some of the interactions that he had with Coach Payton during that time. So stick around for that interview after this quick shout out from our sponsor, and we will jump right in.
The American Sports Podcast is brought to you by the following sponsors. Sola Safety. Sola Safety becomes part of your management staff and helps you complete the tasks necessary to have a robust safety management system so that you can focus on production. Now more than ever, executives, business owners, and organizational leaders are trying to stretch their dollars, maximize their people power, and create long-term sustainable results for their companies. Program development and implementation is our business. Let us help you implement a safety management system which will enable your organization to maintain compliance. Contact Sola Safety at 337-210-3352. 337-210-3352. Plus one.
So before this plus one segment begins, I want to first apologize for the sound quality in it. I did not realize until about 3/4 of the way into the interview that there was an issue with the line that Delvin was calling into. You can still hear him. The sound may be a little bit light on your end in regards to the volume. I tried to tinker with it a little bit, but I didn't want to mess with the quality of his voice by messing with the decibels of his voice and the audio. So I apologize for that in advance. I just want to make sure that everyone understands I did the best I could to get it to a point where it was usable, and I think it is. It's a great interview. There's a lot of interesting information in it, especially the parts about his Saints tenure and the end of his Saints tenure. So we're going to jump right into it, but just bear with me on the audio. So my guest this week on Plus One is the highest paid defensive back for the Canadian Football League, playing for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. He has been a CFL All-Star multiple times, an Eastern Division All-Star multiple times, and he was the Saints' 2015 recipient of the Ed Block Courage Award, presented to select players in the NFL who were voted by their teammates as role models of inspiration, sportsmanship, and courage. New Orleans native McDonald 35 alum and former New Orleans Saint Delvin Breaux. Delvin, thank you for joining me today.
Oh man, no problem, man. How you doing, boss?
I'm doing pretty good, Delvin. It's an honor to speak with you, and when I think of athletes with passion and dedication to their craft, a lot of people come to mind, but you are at the very top of that list. And I think it's just been, the reason is because you've been through so much in your life and your football career. The adversity really started, I think, back when you were in high school. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, back in October of 2006, you broke your neck running down and colliding with another player on a kickoff coverage. Take me through that play and what exactly happened. What were you feeling in that moment?
Well, yeah, it was in October of 2006. It was my senior year in high school, man. I just, committed to LSU that summer in June. And, that was pretty exciting for me going into my senior season. So we had a couple of LSU coaches who come into the game, to watch me play and, to see some other players. And so I'm excited. My juice is flowing. My adrenaline was going. I'm like, I got my coaches here, man. I'm going to enjoy. I'm about to enjoy this game. I'm about to show them and put on a show. And so it was coming down after halftime, man. My coach was like, "Hey, we need somebody at the L1 on kickoff," because I was on the left side going down on kickoff. It was going down to the I want to say the north end zone. And man, like I didn't know. I didn't know I was was going to break my neck, man. And like I said, just telling this story over and over again, it gives me confidence, but it also it brings back emotions because of how far it came. So. Going back, I was going down the left side of the field, man, tackling, going in the stadium. I was going down the left side of the field, and I was full speed. I was like the first one down there, man. I talked to my best friend on the sideline before the ball was kicked. I was like, "Hey, man, I'm going to make this play." He was like, "All right." So I shot out of there, man. Boom. And I ran so fast, I dove in there, and I led with my head. But my head wasn't down. It was up. But when the guy when he was running, his knee was lifting up my neck. Like my head hit his knee, and it jerked my neck back. And man, after that, like I rolled over, and everything just went dark. Everything was dark, man. And then within a few seconds, man, a bright white light just appeared, man, and I was just like, wow, like it was crazy, man. And like my teammates were like, "Hey, bro, we need you. Get up, man." I'm like, man, I was like, I can't move. And they're like, "You all right?" I'm like, "Yeah." And then my coach gave me smelling salt, got me up, man. And, I walked off the field on my own power, man, took my own helmet off. And, I was about to get back in the game on the next couple of plays because in high school, I believe if you get hurt, like I think you have to sit out like a play or two,
Right.
Maybe 2 or 3 or something like that. And, I'm jumping on the sideline like, yeah, I'm about to get back in, man. Not knowing my neck was broken. I have a whole neck break right now, man. And, like, that's when I started feeling excruciating pain, shooting up the back of my neck, man. And I went to my dad. I said, "Dad, like, something in the back here is bothering me." And he set me down and tried to give me some ibuprofen. And I couldn't swallow the ibuprofen because my disc slipped in my esophagus.
Wow.
From the injury. So I didn't know what was going on. So I'm trying to cough up the pills because I can't swallow. So I'm trying to breathe. I can't breathe right. Like I'm coughing up the pills, and I got them out. And I told my dad, I said, "Man, back here is killing me." Like, and I was pointing at the back of my neck. I said, "Man, back here is killing me." And I told my dad, I said, "Dad, get the ambulance. Like, get them over here." And, they got the ambulance over there, man, put me in a stretcher and, took me to the hospital.
Yeah, you talk about your form on that tackle. That's been such a big emphasis with safety in the game. And I watched that video back when you became a Saint and did some research on you. I watched it again yesterday preparing for this call. And I mean, the camera view is kind of far away, but I didn't feel like it seemed like you had bad form. So it's interesting that you bring that up, but you end up fracturing your C4, C5, and C6 vertebrae. Is that correct?
Correct.
And so, but in true character, Les Miles and the LSU football program elects to honor your scholarship that they had offered you, which was amazing. I mean, explain your feelings when you heard that news.
Oh man, I was actually, I can remember that night, man. I was actually at home, and my dad was like, "Hey man, Coach Les Miles wants to talk to you." Oh, that's cool. It's pretty cool. So I was on the phone with him, and I remember I stepped outside, and I'm just looking up at the stars, man, and Coach Miles is just talking to me. He's like, "Hey Delvin, man, I'm glad that you were able to recover, from your accident. Man, you're such a strong individual. You're strong, man." And the whole Tiger organization, we sat down as an organization, as a staff, and we want to continue and honor your scholarship. It's like, wait, what? So yeah, we want to honor your scholarship, man. We think it's going to be incredible for you to come here and be a part of this. Be a part of this group. You once you committed to us, you stuck with your commitment, and you didn't change. You stuck with us, and we want to do the same for you. I said, wow, like I was so excited, man. I'm like, oh my God, I get to go to LSU, man. Like, and it wasn't even about football. We wasn't even talking about football. It's more about life.
Right.
Like getting an education. Man, and that's what I thought was so cool about Les Miles, man. And that's what made me become a fan favorite of Les Miles, man, because he wasn't even worried about football, man. He was worried about my care, myself being my health. Man, that was so dope that night, man. And yeah, man, that was pretty awesome, man. And I stuck it and ran with it.
Yeah, it's incredible, man. I didn't even know that at the time. I knew that you had a scholarship offered to LSU, and I know that you actually did attend LSU, but I didn't know that your scholarship was honored by the football program. So it's incredible to think back. I'm interested though because you weren't able to actually play football while you were there. So what was your role while at LSU? Your role on the team. How did the things that happened while you were there also shape for your future in football?
Well, I didn't really have a role on the team, man. You know, I didn't really have a role, man. I was just there for school, bro. Like, you know, they didn't really want me lifting weights. They didn't want me doing anything because, you know, they really was taking my neck, you know, very,
Right.
very serious. And, you know, because liability is crazy, right? Like if anything was to happen to me around a facility, I could potentially sue LSU and
Of course.
stuff like that. So they were, you know, protecting themselves, protecting me at the same time. So I thought that was pretty smart of them. So I didn't really have a role, man. They tried to get me into the graduate assistant program as far as coaching or being a player's coach or whatever, but I didn't really like it, man, because, and I'm being honest with you, okay? I'm being honest with you. I didn't really like it because, you know, my emotions were too involved in the game. You know, I'm out there practicing Patrick Peterson, Morris Claiborne, you know, Harry Coleman, you know, I'm seeing Jared Lee, guys like that, George Jefferson, guys practicing like that, man. I belongs out there, man. I belonged out there. I knew I belonged out there, man. You know, and it hurt me every time I went to practice and saw that, man. I couldn't stay. I couldn't take it, man. Like I cried on my last day. I cried, man. Like I couldn't even stay out there for a full 2 days. I cried on my second day because football means so much to me that it can't be over with. I can't sit up here and just wear a damn graduate assistant shirt. I don't want to wear that.
Right.
That ain't who I am. That ain't where I need to be. You know what I'm saying?
No, I completely understand that, man. And you're
tough, man.
You know, so I absolutely get it. I mean, it's you can see that passion you have, that fire you have. Even when you were playing the Saints, you could see that fire and that passion that you had. And football wasn't over for you, right? Your journey really starts moving forward when your time at LSU ends. The next step in your journey is you're playing for the Louisiana Bayou Vipers of the Gridiron Developmental Football League, where you were then also named an All-Star. How did it feel getting back into some actual pads? And I'm curious to know, what was your first contact like? What was your first big hit in some football action after such a serious injury?
Well, you know what, man? The Vipers, man, I want to say shout out to Coach Ryan and Ms. Moore and Coach Waddell, man, and the Viper gang, man, for taking me in, man, and giving me an opportunity to showcase my talents, you know, for those guys. So shout out to Viper gang out there in Hammond. So, man, that opportunity was amazing for me because it gave me an opportunity to showcase what I can do, right? You know, a lot of people, you know, forgot about me. I was written off because, you know, I broke my neck, didn't play at LSU, he's forgotten. So I had to do something to make people remember and to bring my name back up. So I told my ex-wife at the time, I told my wife, she's my ex-wife now, my ex-wife at the time, that I need you to come out here and record these games because I'm seriously thinking about getting to the NFL, and I will make it to the NFL. I just need you to have my back and, you know, record these games because I can make highlight tape and I can go do it myself.
Right.
I don't need no agent. I don't need no, because my film speaks for itself. You know, so yeah, so she was up there, you know, recording every game, and I took every film, and, you know, I made my own highlights, man, and, you know, and I took off. I had to just be patient. You know, I'm a big believer in God, man, so I had to just be patient, you know, every day and wait for my turn, man. So, yeah, that was pretty cool. That was a pretty cool thing for me to get cleared and to go play, to get my career back started with the Bayou Vipers. So that was pretty dope.
So you're putting together film tape, you're kind of grinding it out, and I'm sure at the time an NFL career seemed like a practical goal of yours just because of your dedication to it. But, you know, I know you spent some time in the CFL before you came to the NFL. How did that kind of shape you You played for the Voodoo for a while, then you played for the CFL. How did that kind of shape you in regards to the achieving the NFL goal? You know what I'm saying? Playing in amateur leagues is obviously not the same, but, and CFL is not necessarily an amateur league. But how did that kind of shape you for your NFL career?
Well, you know what, man? It took a lot of off-season grind, man. It took a lot of off-season grind, man. Because I study a lot of film, I study a lot of tape. Like my favorite cornerback, Darrell Reeves, man, and I study him to the T, man. And I watch him and I watch him and I work my craft every day in the off season, just so when I prepare myself to be on the big stage to show in front of the scouts and the coaches and stuff like that, I'm prepared.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not even going to be a step behind. I'm not going to have the coaches tell me, hey, you need to be in shape. You need to go run more laps. I'm already in shape. I already ran more laps already before I even got here. So I'm already prepared to be a number one corner from the jump. I know everybody have to start off from the bottom, but I'm already preparing myself, in the off season. So when it's time for me to go to the, when it was time for me to go to arena football, when it's time for me to go to CFL, when I got to the NFL, man, I was already at my game. I was already in line to play. You see how fast I started in the NFL, man.
Yeah.
And I didn't start the NFL that year. I started in that off season.
Right.
So I prepared my mind that I was going to start no matter what with the Saints going into the season. I already prepared that off season that I was going to start. So, hey, man, if you start with your mind, you believe it starts in your mind, man, you achieve it,
Yeah.
So that's what I did, man. That's what I do. It always starts in the off season for me. And that's how I be prepared.
So you go through many levels, man, right? The developmental football league, the Voodoo, then you're playing for the Tiger Cats the first time around, and that 504 area code pops up on your phone, man. What's your feelings like, and who's on the other end of that call? That's what I'm curious, and who actually called you?
Oh, man, you know what? That was a pretty dope moment. It was actually Terry Fontenot, the scout guy for the Saints. Terry Fontenot, TF, man, he's a pretty great guy, man. Yeah, man, he called and he was just like, hey, Delvin Breaux, what's going on, man? Terry Fontenot with the New Orleans Saints. And I said, man, I already know who this is. I already done my homework. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I was already excited, man. So he was asking me what kind of workouts I had coming up, and I was like, man, I have Atlanta Falcons, Cleveland Browns. He said, oh, no, we're going to get you in before Atlanta, man. Oh, no, we're going to get you in the next day. How you looking tomorrow?
Oh, yeah, not that division rival, man.
Yeah, exactly. He was like, man, how you looking tomorrow? You going to be ready to work out tomorrow? We're going to get you down here, man, and we're going to take care of you. I said, oh, man, I'm ready to get home, man. Shoot, I've been waiting to get home. So they flew me home, man, and, I had an incredible workout, and the rest was history. So,
man, then the real fun begins, right? You're in black and gold, playing in the NFL for your hometown team. I remember the news breaking that you were going to be a Saint. I remember your story of the injury and how you were recruited to LSU and everything. I went back at the time and looked at some of your tape from the CFL. I remember texting my brother at the time and showing him and being very excited, man. The Saints were hurting for cornerbacks at the time. It was kind of a transitional period. And when you came in, man, it's funny that you just said that about Darrelle Revis because I have this in my notes, but I remember thinking you reminded me a lot of Darrelle Revis, just the way that you played up on the line, your tenacity, man, that Revis Island thing, that isn't something to take lightly either because at the time, Revis was probably the most dominant defensive back in the NFL, right? So that's who you reminded me of. It's funny that you say that because I had the exact same thinking, and it makes sense because if you tried to copy his game and emulate yourself after him because he was having so much success, then it makes perfect sense, right? How did that transition from the CFL to the NFL go, though, right? So the leagues are very similar, but they also have many differences. How did that transition go? Was it an easier transition, or was it harder than you expected?
No, the transition was fine because at the end of the day, football is football, right?
Right.
You have to adjust to rules. That was my biggest thing. I had to adjust to rules because they were way more stricter on, hand contact, physical contact. You can't touch the receivers. I said, damn, I'm barely touching him. You can't touch. I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah.
In the CFL, I can get away with it. Like in CFL because the referees knew. It's football, man. I love that.
Right.
I love the game. So that was the only thing I really had to adjust to was just understanding the referees and how they make calls during the game.
Yeah.
If I have to be nice before the game. What's up, ref? How you doing today? Hey, Mr. Ray, how you doing? Hey, y'all had a great Sunday. How y'all Saturday was?
Butter him up a little bit, huh? Butter him up.
Yeah, you have to build a connection with those referees, man, because you don't want them to make that call when it's it's a crunch time situation, man. And, you know what I'm saying? He throw that flag on you because you didn't ask him how his day was
right
before the game. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you got to think about all that, man.
Absolutely, man.
You got to. You got to. So, like I said, that was the biggest transition for me, man, was just understanding the rules and what the way they was going to be, making calls. So,
Yeah.
that was pretty cool.
And I think the whole aspect of the game, I hate to say the game's soft, but the game being different and not as physical maybe as it was back in the day, that's a different conversation for a whole day, man. I could go on and on about that. So I was very hyped about your potential when you came in and you signed a contract with the Saints, man, and then you come in and you have a great 2015 season, right? I don't know if you knew this, but you ranked 5th in the league in cornerback play in regards to the grades that Pro Football Focus puts out, okay? For that whole year, you ranked 75.8 overall, all right? That's a 73.4 run defense grade and a 76.0 flat pass defense grade. That was ranked 5th and well above average in regards to cornerback play. And the number one quarterback that year in regards to quarterback play grades was Darrelle Revis. So it was a very fun year to watch you play, bringing the Saints secondary to another level. Who do you attribute that early success to, right? Was it a positional coach, maybe some veteran players that helped you along the way? Who was there to make Delvin Breaux's first year successful besides Delvin Breaux?
You know what, man? I would say my boy Ryan Clark, man. Ryan Clark. He was the safety for the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Washington Redskins. He went to LSU. Former LSU player, safety, man. Ryan Clark, man. He took me in on this wing during that summer, man. Before the season, once he found out I signed with the Saints and everything, and I went and worked out with those guys at track and Bad Rush. My guy Mac Shuley, shout out to my guy Mac Shuley, man. Love you guys over there. Ryan Terrio, love you guys, man. And he took me in. RC took me in, man, and he put me through drills, man, and he worked my behind out, man. And let me tell you this, man. Like, I was working out with him, man, and after we got done working out, I went and got some more work. And Ryan Clark walks up to me. He said, "Man, what are you doing?" I said, "Man, I want more work. I'm working. What you mean?" Like, he was like, "Man, no, you can't be doing this, bro. I just put you. You need this." I said, "RC, man, I have to be great, man. I will be great, man. I'm not gonna let this league bring me in this league and wash me out. I will be great, man." He looked at me, said, "All right, now, all right," and he walked off. So I was like, "Yeah," and I had a great year that year, man. And RC called me right after the Dallas Cowboys game, man. I had a phenomenal game, against Terrence Williams that year. And he called me. He's like, "Hey, man, you look damn good out there, man. I did not know you, man. You keep your thing, man. I'm so proud of you, man. Like, just keep doing your thing, and I'm rooting for you." And, that was it, man. So I would say Ryan Clark, man. I appreciate every word of advice, man, he gave me, man. And, I took every word of advice and I ran with it, man. I took it, ran with it, and I became a baller.
Yeah, I think you could see, too, that Cowboys game you mentioned, that was kind of a turning point for you, I think. I think you could see the work that you were putting in because you were right. Early in the season, especially in the preseason, I think maybe some of the characteristics that you had from your time in the CFL and in the Arena Football League got you into some trouble in regards to penalties and things like that. So we talked about that. I think you could also see that maybe you were getting acclimated to the speed of the game, right? So that the NFL is a very fast-paced environment. So, but it did not take you long. But you're right. I think that Cowboys game was a turning point for you, and you really started to elevate your game on top of that. So you could see the work that was going into it. That being said, man, who is the toughest NFL receiver that you've gone against that you can remember of?
Julio Jones, man. I'm tired of saying this guy's name. I'm tired, man, because this guy, man, he's amazing, man. Like, I would say he's by far the best receiver I've ever went against in my life, man. Like, legitimately. Like the way he played the game, you know what I'm saying? Like, he blocks and run plays. He literally blocks you. He ain't a receiver that's gonna come up there and touch you and, all right, just play hands, shake and fight. He's coming to block you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, he's not playing no games. And after I got done that, I kid you not, I got done that game, man. I told my wife at the time, which is my ex-wife now, I say, I've never felt this sore in my life.
Wow.
She's like, "What?" I said, "Yes, I've never felt this sore." Despite the success, we won the game.
Yeah.
The way I felt after the game, I went into a dogfight. And that's how it's supposed to be. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how it's supposed to be, man. So I would say Julio Jones, best receiver I've ever faced, man. in my life. Yeah.
Well, I'm not surprised. I mean, Julio, to me, I've been saying this for years now, that Julio Jones is the heartbreak to the Saints twice a year that Steve Smith was back in, a decade ago for the Carolina Panthers. He was a heartbreak to the Saints for years, So Julio Jones is probably the one player, besides maybe Tom Brady and Gronk, now that they're both in the NFC South. But Julio Jones is probably the one player that I do not look forward to going up against, the Saints going up against twice a year.
I do though. I do. I love my Savages, my Sean Payton, man. I do. I look forward to it because I know them goons out there on lockdown. You know what I'm saying? I look forward to it. I do.
Well, good, man. I think bringing up Ryan Clark and things like that again, the LSU boys sticking together. Obviously, another big person in your life at that time was Coach Payton, and I think fans see Coach Payton in press conferences or interviews, and he seems like a guy that's like just doesn't play around, doesn't have time for nonsense. What's Coach Payton like really behind the scenes, man? Describe Coach Payton. Describe that locker room culture that he's built in New Orleans.
Man, like you said, man, he's a business mindset guy. Like he's a business mindset guy. When it's time to have fun, he has fun. But when it's time for business, it's time for business. So that's what I love about that, because that's how my dad was, man. It was all the structure. When it's time to play, it's time to play. But when it's time to get down to business, man, it's time to get down to business.
Right.
And he's an awesome coach, man. He's fun to be around, man. He's fun to play for, man. He's a player's coach, so I love it, man. He's awesome.
So your time as an NFL player and as a Saint at that time comes to an end after a few years, and it was kind of a weird situation from the view of the public on how it all went down. And the team discovers that doctors employed on their staff misdiagnosed a leg injury. You were originally diagnosed with a leg contusion, but the injury ends up sidelining you for the majority of that training camp at the time. It seemed like from the outside, like there was some confusion, maybe some miscommunication between your camp, team doctors, the Saints upper management, to the point where it was reported at the time that the organization was seeking trade partners for you. So I don't know how much detail you're willing to go into, but can you explain what happened in your own words that led to that misdiagnosis and ultimately the termination of employment for two of the team orthopedists?
Yeah, man. That was a trying time, man. It was a trying time for me and my family, because we were trying to figure out and get all on the same page as to what's going on with my injury.
Right.
At the time, like you said, at the time they diagnosed it as a bone contusion, man, which I know for a fact that my leg wasn't a bone contusion. I know the difference between a bone contusion and a broken leg. And the reason I can tell that is because I just broke my leg the year before.
Yeah.
I know exactly how it feels. I know. So when you're telling me, oh, it's not a bone, it's not a broken leg, ain't nothing wrong with your leg, and I know the feeling of a broken leg, man. That was the most disgusting and most disturbing thing I could ever imagine, because I know my body. You know what I'm saying? I'm telling you, something is wrong, something is worse than a bone contusion, but you're not listening to me. You're telling me what your doctors are saying, my doctors are right, my doctors are the best. Okay, well, let me go get a second opinion then, so I can figure it out. You know what I'm saying? Because your doctors keep telling me it's a bone contusion. You got me out here trying to practice. You got me out here trying to run. I'm running on my leg. Mind you, now my leg is broken.
Right.
You got me out here practicing. You're coming in the treatment room, in the training room, yelling at me. You know what I'm saying? Making threats of you going to trade me and all this. And then you in front of my teammates, making me look bad. Oh, you just don't want practice. You don't want practice with your teammates, making threats. Oh, I'm going to trade you and all this. You think it's a game. Man, that's embarrassing, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, as a human being, how much could you take? How much could you take for somebody to just keep coming at you, nagging at you day after day after day, telling you you're lying, ain't nothing wrong with you. And you know what I'm saying? How much could you take, man? How much could a person take, man?
No,
you're embarrassing me in front of my teammates, man. My teammates looking at me like, bro, you all right, bro? Like, no, fuck no, I'm not all right, man. No, I'm not all right. Hell no. But the fact that, I mean, he's the head coach, everybody has to respect, man. But it's a certain amount of respect that goes on, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, we can handle stuff behind closed doors. We can go talk behind doors. You don't have to come embarrass me in front of my teammates, in front of my peers, having them questioning me like, man, damn, bro, are you okay? Like, what's wrong with you, bro? Like, that's embarrassing, man. But none of that gets out because you're not supposed to say nothing because you don't want to make the other person feel bad. But, man, people need to know about what goes on behind the door because it's not right. It's not right, man. And a whole bunch of other guys got hurt. They've been through the same thing before me, man. You know, like, it's embarrassing. It sucks. And like I said, I got, man, released from the team for what? I don't know. I didn't do anything wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
I found out off of Twitter, so I'm like, wow. That's how they handling business. I guess God had a better plan, man. And, you know,
it was revealed later that the Saints and the Pelicans both used the same doctors, and some other players, like you said, had injuries that were also botched. One of which has been nobody's been more vocal about it than cornerback Keenan Lewis, and he said that he felt he would have still been a Saint had it not been for botched medical care, man. And it seems like you feel the same way.
Come on now. Come on, man. Really, after I go have a badass rookie season, man, you think I'm going to sit up here and bullshit you think I'm really going to sit up here and come on, man. I'm from New Orleans, man. I love home. Why would I sit up here and fake it? I want to be out here practicing and playing in front of my hometown. This is my home. Why would I fake that? Come on, man. I don't have nothing fake about me. Nothing is fake about me. You know, so that's what was so trying for me and my family. We trying to understand, like, why are they not listening to me, the player, the person who's actually hurt? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, you know, and yeah, you're right. They were making trades. Yeah, there were threats and, you know, everything right to my face. You know, like, what you want me to do? If you telling me you're going to trade me, and so what, trade me, coach? I don't care. You're telling me anyway you're going to trade me. So it don't matter what I do. You're going to trade me. So, okay, trade me. And then, like you said, yes, there were trade rumors to the Dallas Cowboys, and you are absolutely correct. Yes, trade rumors to the Cowboys. Coach Payton specifically told me in my face I would trade to the Cowboys. So it's like, all right, I'll go to Dallas. Dallas, beautiful too. You know, I'm not far from home. You know,
it sounds like you and Coach Payton's relationship really took a hit because of it all, you know. And like I said, there was a miscommunication.
It did. But we got on the same page. You know, I went up there like a grown man, and I went and talked to him, man. And you know, I did what a grown man was supposed to do, and that was to go up there and then address the elephant in the room. You dig? You know, and I went and talked to him like, you know, man to man, and you know, I told him how I felt, and you know, and I didn't want to burn no bridge. You know, like he said, when I left out the room, man, he said, there's no, you know, bridges burned between us. No doors is closed for you here, man. We love you. You know, unfortunately, you know, the leg accident, you know, the doctors misdiagnosed you. We fired those doctors, man, because we want the best for our players and yada, yada, yada. And next thing you know, I'm cut from the team. I'm not even there that spring. So I'm like, all right, whatever. So next step, what's the next best thing for Delvin Breaux? You know, I got to find the next best thing for Delvin Breaux, man. And
right.
God placed me with a badass contract up there in Canada, man, and I love it. It's awesome.
Yeah, that was kind of my next thing, man. You get the highest paid defensive back contract in CFL history, man. How did you feel when you got that contract?
Man, that was a beautiful thing, man. That was, man, you know, I was crying, man, because, you know, I was crying leading up into that because I knew, you know, I belonged in the NFL, you know, and for my dreams, you know, to get cut short like that was very devastating, man, because I knew I had a lot to offer for my hometown team and what I've been through. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't going to do nothing spectacular things for the Who Dat Nation, man. And so, yeah, man, just leading up into that, my agent, you know, trying to figure out best opportunity for me. You know, we had the other NFL teams, the Denver Broncos, I flew out to them. That didn't work out. The New England Patriots, I flew to them. That didn't work out. So the next best thing for me was the CFL. And, you know, the first team, you know, I reached out to was Hamilton Tiger-Cats, man, because I felt that was my ticket home. You know, that's why I felt love it. That's who gave me an opportunity to get me to the NFL, man. And, you know, I couldn't do nothing but go back and pay homage. And I told them I want to play for them. I don't want to play for no other team. And let's make a deal. And we made it happen, man.
So, you get back in the CFL, man. You've been back there, what, 2-3 years now. Have you had any of the contact with NFL teams? Does it look like there's a possibility you may play in the NFL again?
No, man. You know what, man? I'm not even worried about that, man. You know, I'm a big believer in God, and God says stay where your feet are, man. So my feet are in the CFL, man, and you know I'm standing CFL. I'm not worried about the NFL, man. If that opportunity presents itself later on, you know, oh well. But right now, man, I'm focused on winning a Grey Cup, man. I need a Grey Cup ring, man. I'm focusing on helping win my team a Grey Cup, man. So that's where my focus is right now.
So, but in normal times, man, it would be almost time to get back to football, right? If I'm not mistaken, the CFL season would be due to start in early June.
Yep. So I would actually, man, we have to report like the 18th or the 19th or something of May. So, you know, I'll just be wrapping up my time with my son, man, getting my last love, time in with him, man, and just it's time to go to work, man. You know, it's time to go ball.
So, has there been any hampering in regards to the pandemic because of that? Have you communications with the team in regards to you guys anticipating starting on time?
Yeah, man, they're giving us bits and pieces, man. I just actually got an email from our CFLPA rep up there, man. So I was actually about to dive into that email and see what they're talking about and see what the news is, man, the latest news.
Well, good, man. Well, being quarantined with no sports has all the focus really on recent NFL free agency and the upcoming NFL draft, which begins tomorrow. Have you kind of kept up with the Saints? You still keep up with them?
Yes, man. Yes, man. I'm a big Saints fan, man. I'm a big Saints fan, man. I always keep up with the Saints, man. I love the Saints, man. I'm always root for the Saints, no matter what happened. What the future may hold, man. I'm a Who Dat Nation, forever, man. So,
what are some of your thoughts on their recent free agency moves?
You know what? I don't really pay attention to that. Because at the end of the day, I just worry about the 53. You know what I'm saying? I want to see the 53-man roster. I want to see them goons, and I want to see those underdog stories, man. I want to see those guys who, had a long shot to get there, man, and make it. So I actually wait till the 53-man roster to actually focus in and dial in on those guys. Plus, I have to focus on my job too, right?
Of course.
So I really be all into that, man.
You got any players in the upcoming draft that you're excited to see play in the NFL?
Yes, man. I'm excited to see. I want to see the receiver from LSU, Jefferson, man. I want to see him ball out. I want to see the cornerback Fulton. I want to see Christian Fulton, the cornerback from LSU. I want to see those guys ball out. The cornerback from Ohio State, man. He has some really nice feet, man. His feet are nice. Jeff Okuda, man. So I hope to see those guys excel, and Grant Delpit too as well, man.
Yeah.
So shout out to those boys, man, and Queen too, man. Queen, man. So Patrick Queen. So hopefully, we get to see those boys, and much success to those boys.
Yeah, I got Queen Patrick Queen as one of my possible top 5 players the Saints could end up picking in the end of the first round. So tell me a little bit about broshow.com real quick, man. Tell me a little bit about your website real quick.
Say that again?
Tell me a little bit about your website real quick, broshow.com.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, man, I have my website is broshow.com, man. That's where you can go in my store. You can check out my merchandise. I have my brand, Bro Show, just opening up. So you can go check out my T-shirts and my merchandise on broshow.com.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I visited it this morning, kind of took a look around. You got some interesting stuff there. I might end up buying me a T-shirt.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it, boss.
Well, it's been a pleasure speaking with you, Devin. I really appreciate the time you've given me today, man. Thank you for coming on with me. I hope to see you continue your success in the CFL, maybe someday be back in an NFL uniform, and maybe we can catch up again sometime during your upcoming season to see how things are going.
Most definitely, man. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Devin, man. Have a good day.
All right, Bert.
That brings us to the end of this week's episode. I do not have an interesting question segment for you or a Louisiana sports recap, and that is basically just in the essence of time. I did receive a couple of questions, a couple of submissions for the interesting question segment. Both were NFL draft related. I am going to be focusing on the Saints draft picks on next week's episode. It will be the entire focus of that episode, and recapping how the Saints did in the draft, some of the players that they took, and really diving into the grades and the analysis of the players that the Saints ended up taking. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the other players, the UL players, the LSU players that are taken in tomorrow's draft. So tune in next week. I have a special guest that's joining me next week to do that draft recap. and you're not going to want to miss that. Again, I apologize for the crappy audio on the Delvin Breaux interview. I hope you guys still enjoyed that, and I promise that I have some more equipment coming in next week. I'm gonna get the audio in a good spot. It's gotten better and better each week as I've gotten more sponsors and more money coming in. I've bought better equipment, and I got some more coming in this week. So tune in next week. Special guest helping me with a draft recap. Thanks for tuning in this week. Everyone have a good weekend.